So I'm going to, in this recording, just kind of distill very simply what I was saying in the last two recordings to something practical, something that you can employ in your interactions with people. And I mean, it's not very complicated. It's pretty obvious, but it's very useful, and it will. There's another thing also. I realized that in the last recordings, I recurringly return to certain major themes, right? So I call a lot of them the pillars, or I'm calling them that. I don't know if I want to make it a thing, but they are pillars of what I believe are the correct ways, the ideals that are truly of value in our lives and worth pursuing, such as honesty, including honesty towards oneself, humility, and a certain amount of trust and or faith, if depending on how you want to see it. And those are all in part, regarding your relationship to the unknown, to existence, to reality, to the universal, if there are any universals, which, anyways, I'll get into that another time, but I think there are some basic universals. Whatever you want to call that, be it God, again, existence and the unknown, I think, are pretty good starting points or words or fillers to refer to what I'm talking about. Approaching it with true humility, true honesty towards it and yourself, and a certain amount of trust and faith. So foundational, and I think I explained why some of why I think those things are so important. Maybe I'll do other talks individually about those different pillars, but what I'm kind of introducing with this practical method, which again is not really that original, but it's just kind of a slightly different angle or attitude to approach a lot of situations in life with, that a lot of people already have, but to package it, to explain it, to be able to describe it well and allow people to repeat it and try it out for themselves, I think is an important process. But what I'm adding to those pillars with this method, and I'll maybe do a second talk or finish this talk talking about that, is compassion and relating to others, the unknown, and others, the people outside of yourself, and even aspects of yourself, like the hidden aspects. Say you could call it your subconscious or your body. These are all aspects of the unknown. No? Well, I think that they are. I think that these approaches, this attitude, this perspective, these pillars, apply to all of those things. Absolutely, completely, and utterly. And I know it's not like a bullet point, clear cut, here's what you do in every single different kind of situation, but I think it's still simple enough, and it's a general and general enough in certain ways as well to be applied in pretty much any situation. Well, okay, it's as simple as this. It's really built off of the Socratic method, right? And if you don't know who Socrates is, find out who Socrates is, read a fucking book. You're not stupid for not knowing that if you don't, by the way. I know the way I just said that was very maybe patronizing, If you don't know Socrates, that's perfectly fine, but I definitely think you should know about Socrates. Basically, it's just he's an early philosopher in Greece, very well known. He would question everyone all the time. And he would question people why they believe certain things and why they believed the things that backed up those beliefs, etc. And it's very simple. Like, if someone says something that you don't agree with, or that you do agree with, and you want to have a discussion, or you want to debate them, disagree with them, argue with them, first things first, be like, tell yourself, sit there for a second, be like, despite all of my preconceptions, maybe this person knows something. Maybe they're not totally right about their entire perspective, but maybe there's something to learn within that. Maybe there's some of the reasoning for what they're saying is based off of something worthwhile or verifiable, interesting, of value, etc. Right? So, the best approach, in my opinion, is to recognize, okay, first, you sit with yourself, you start with a little bit of humility, a little bit of honesty towards yourself. You can never be too sure, right? You can never be completely sure. So admit that to yourself. Again, refer to the last two talks I talked about. I recorded. There's very, very, very little that you can be certain of. So, honesty, then a little bit of humility. Maybe they know something. Maybe there's something to this, right? Third, a little bit of compassion. This person is a human being. No matter how ignorant they might sound to you in this moment. I mean, I think in this process, compassion could come before humility, but it doesn't really matter. Don't worry too much about the order. You can pick your own, play around with it, but this is the general approach. Recognize that that human being is just as lost and innocent as you are. They are just as limited in their ability to perceive reality and to be certain of the validity of their perceptions, of their own reasoning, their deductions, their memory, their feelings, their sense organs, the things that they've read. They are just as small and ego-driven as you are. So no matter how wrong they may be, truly, right or wrong, recognize that that is basically the same being as you, having a different experience. Trust me, people feel this. People can tell when you relate to them deeply. Especially, and this bothers a lot of people, but don't let that stop you. Especially when you're disagreeing about something. But in this situation, you're not openly disagreeing with them, ideally. At least not much. Come at the situation... Well, okay, I'll keep talking about compassion a little bit here. It really opens people up to talking, to exploring an idea or whatever idea that they're presenting. This is so simple. This is something people already do sometimes, but and to some others it's so not obvious that this is the level to which I feel like I need to express and map this kind of a thing out. Well, At that point, you're relating to this person, you're recognizing, wow, they've probably gone through as much shit as I have, as much pain, as much confusion. They might have, maybe infinitely more than you. You never know. Maybe far less than you, but don't assume that. Right? Just start off from the point of you don't know what this person is part of the fantastic mystery of life. The infinite mystery. They could be full of bullshit as much as they could be full of the most arcane, secret, wonderful knowledge that will enlighten you. Right? So, stay stay a little bit closer to the middle here, but just, recognize that. And again, people feel this, they open up a bit more when you come at them this way. And then you start asking them questions. Ask yourself genuinely about the topic that they're presenting or putting forward, or their opinion or whatever. Well, why do they think that? What's their reasoning? Where does that come from? Or break it down. Well, is this true in this case or that case? Just ask questions. Take some interest. Try to imagine that, well, first of all, you don't know anything about the topic, but also that this is an exploration of their mind, right? Not just the topic. We're delving into a human's rich subjective experience. Have some respect for that, because next time you open your mouth, you better hope that someone's seeing things the same way, right? Wouldn't you want that? Wouldn't you want someone genuinely listening to you, even if they totally disagree, and asking honest questions, and thinking, hey, maybe you have something really of value to offer? Because the more you do that for someone else, the more they're going to do that for you. See, that's the crux. That's the shit. That's the amazing part. A little bit of reciprocity goes a long ways. And the more you do this, the more that they feel comfortable and not judged by you, the more also they're going to be willing to question the shit that comes out of their own mouths. That's beautiful, because I've done this so much. You keep questioning, and you really are coming as much as you can from a place of, wow, I want to learn from this person. I want to learn in general. I'm curious about everything. What do I know? Maybe this sounds crazy to me, but put that aside. And of course, I still to this day, after years of this is something I've done forever, for a long time. I shouldn't say forever, of course. For years, I got lucky, and I knew someone who had a kind of this approach from a very, very young age, and I kind of took on that attitude, and I felt from a very early age that this worked well. And I tried other approaches, more argumentative or more just like sit back and accept everything. I've tried a lot of different attitudes, and this really works well in my opinion. Shit. I hate getting lost like that. Yeah. So when you're at that point and you're asking these questions to them, they're feeling comfortable, right? They start, yes, that's it. I've seen this happen so many times that I have someone who's so certain of themselves, like they're debating someone else, and then I come along and I start asking them a lot of questions. The other person was like, they backed off with their tail between their legs. Other people are watching or something, and clearly this is the winner of the debate. So I'm coming at them like everyone's, from what everyone's perspective is, right? Of, oh, this is the winner, this person is right. They're the alpha male in this situation, even if they're female or whatever. And I'm asking genuine questions, and I'm asking questions for everyone else around me too. I'm trying to make things clear. I'm trying to really, break down the nuance of the topic, because coming from this person who's so clearly enlightened about this topic. And the more I actively have this attitude, the more other people start taking it. And the more the person talking, the king of the hill in this situation, reaches the end of their reasoning, because I keep questioning why. Why is something this way? Why do you see it that way? Why do you think things happen that way? Or, you try to break it down to the base mechanisms and everything. And so often, the person starts to realize the limitations of their own knowledge and their own reasoning and where their presumptions lie. And it's amazing how humble they can be and actually come off, not as, like, it's not embarrassing in that situation to be wrong. It's just you're surrounded by people, other human beings, who are feeling you as a human being. And it might be a little bit embarrassing, but it's still comfortable. It's still like a soft letdown. And it's not to say that what they had to say is totally rubbish either. I mean, like, along the way, along that questioning process, you learn a lot of interesting things usually. And the person gets to share what they have to say. But then, they realize, oh, okay, maybe my original idea wasn't as specifically on point as I thought. There's a large amount of what I had to say that is of value, but those things don't necessarily mean that the overall perspective was 100% correct. They might mean something similar, but more specifically, like a little bit different or completely different. And just like a lot of it's based off of, how the person filling in the gaps around those facts, or seeming facts, or near facts, partial facts, right? This stuff works so well, and you don't afterwards, you don't feel like the person was dumb for making assumptions. You don't feel like you vanquished them and that you're the victor and fuck them, they're so dumb, I'm so smart. No. Usually you realize, wow, this person actually really is smart, has some interesting things to say, but they're not God. They don't know everything. And everything comes back to kind of a level playing field, right? And people are a lot happier there, honestly. Instead of having this ultimate king over the dinner party, the one that everyone looks up to. It's so dysfunctional, in my opinion, that approach. We are a species that has had to develop an enormous amount of cooperation. And like Darwin didn't just say the survival of the fittest. It was also survival of the most adaptable, those who are the best communicators, those who work together the best, the most synergistic. That's a huge part of what has made us so powerful. We developed the whites of our eyes to be able to communicate silently through eye motions when hunting and moving together. Well, okay, I'll be clear, to stay up to my own standards, that we are not 100% sure of, but based off of some of the best archaeological and anthropological evidence, that seems highly, highly likely, because we do see that in other situations. And anyways, I won't get into all the evidence, but there is some cool evidence there. So, all to say, I don't think it's that controversial to say that a pleasant situation where we all feel free to speak openly while still acknowledging the limitations of our knowledge and considering other perspectives and even disagreeing about a lot of stuff, it's not surprising that that is a wonderful thing to have. If we can feel like our basic needs are covered, that like everyone is still supportive. Let's just compare it to a tribal setting. That everyone, even though they don't agree with you about a certain idea, are still going to share their food with you and not reject you and consider you an outcast, right? And that, to some degree, they'll consider your ideas, um, even if you're not totally right or totally wrong. Don't you think you'll feel more comfortable and more open and more willing to contribute and honestly be humble and relate to the tribe in a way that is helpful? This is very normal. But I could go on to a million reasons why I think there's so much difficulty with people nowadays doing this kind of thing. First of all, we don't live very tribal lifestyles. And I know tribal is often associated with the idea of my group versus their group, but there are upsides and downsides to the tribal mindset, including the ability to work as a team. And a lot of people have lost that. With social media, there's a lot of loss of body language and subtle levels of communication, inflection, the ability to communicate in a way that is balanced and can adapt to the other person's understanding, or to synchronize with each other. But no matter what the reason is, be it social media or 100 other things, I think underlining these issues and these ways that we work is all important. Even if it might seem super basic and super obvious. Well, if the obvious isn't stated, then it's forgotten. So, thank you. And,